Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 461st episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have returning guest, author, trainer, Jeff Shore. He came on the show way back, episode 103. He is out with a new book, Follow Up and Close. I did this in the episode as well. All these fancy book covers, man. Follow Up and Close the Sale. Make easy and effective follow-up your winning habit. And we get into this a little bit, but for a long time, I've had a saying that life is too short for follow-up calls. And people would say, well, what does that mean? You don't follow up? And, you see all these things with all these statistics that, the majority of sales happen after the fifth touch and all this good stuff. And what I like to say is when you have a conversation with someone, they are qualified, you had a meeting of the minds, if you will. If you leave things up in the air, then you're a beggar. Hey, I'm just following up to see what you thought. Okay. Now, when you're trying to get that appointment, yes, that you can call that follow-up, you can call that persistence, you can call it prospecting, you can call it your job in sales. Okay. You have your Dream 100, right? Your ultimate marketing machine. You're doing what it takes to set the appointment with a qualified prospect. But once you meet, okay, you set a time. You ask them, what are the next steps? Well, we're going to take this to the board of directors. Fantastic. When do y'all meet? The board of directors meets the third Thursday of every month. Okay, fantastic. What is your recommendation going to be to the board of directors? We're going to recommend we move forward. Do you have everything that you need to build your case? Should I make myself available either in person or on video? Do you need any other handouts, case studies, supplemental material? Nope, we got it. Okay, good. So you're going to meet on the third Thursday of the month. When would you like me to get back to you? I understand it's probably a long meeting. Do you want to wait till the next day? Or maybe you're jammed up. You got to catch up on Friday. Should I, the following Monday? What works for you? Yes, the following Monday. Okay. That following Monday, that is, the 22nd, morning or afternoon. Afternoon, great. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Yeah, 3 o'clock's fine. Fantastic. I'll send you a meeting invitation. Okay. So now when you call, whatever that is, Monday, whatever I said, right, 3 o'clock, when the executive assistant answers the phone, they say, is he expecting your call? May I ask what this call is regarding? Yes, he is expecting my call. I'm calling for our 3 o'clock appointment. Is he in? Okay, that is not a follow-up. That is an appointment. And it makes all the difference in the world. Okay? But reaching them, nailing them down, teeing everything up in the beginning, that's the follow-up. Okay, and that's what we get into. We talk about emotions, emotional attitude. I love what he says. I'm just following up. You're going to like his reply to that. How to set up. Chapter 6, Speed, your secret weapon. So you're in for a treat, all right? And I've been busy behind the scenes working on some things. I've been talking about the 30-day sales growth group, and that's still alive and well. I'm making some changes to that. But in the meantime, my Make Every Sale group, I'm now offering as a digital download. And for the first 75 people, it is super affordable, as in under $200 affordable. It's all of the videos. It's the workbook. It's all the bonus material I'm going to keep putting in there. So it's all digital, on demand. You get it immediately, okay? And you can still join the free Facebook group, theimplementors.com, if you want to talk about some other things. But makeeverysale.com, brand new offer. Previously, you had to get this through the membership site with the ongoing training. It was a subscription, and as soon as you canceled the subscription, if you didn't download any of this, then you didn't have it. All right, but now I've taken all of the digital assets and put them in one place. I'm using a cool tool as well that I had to go through and work with a couple of folks. Very simple to learn. But if you go to makeeverysale.com, you'll see where you can buy it, where it's hosted. Very simple, very elegant, very affordable. Okay, and so I'm actually teaching a small group starting September 1st. I'm teaching a small group how to launch and monetize their idea using this platform. Well, if they want to use this platform, they can use it and save a lot of money. So check it out, all right? MakeEverySale.com, and don't say I never did anything nice for you. Now, let's bring on our guest. Jeff Shore, fellow Californian. I don't know what the heck we're thinking. Author of the new book, Follow Up and Close. Make easy and effective follow up. Oh, you know what? I said that wrong, but I won't edit it. Follow up and close the sale.
There you go. Yeah.
Could you correct me? Look, you're so calm. You're this professional. Like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, but I want to save him. I'm going to pull his bacon out of the fire. Follow up and close the sale. Make easy and effective follow up your winning habit. Welcome to the show, man. Welcome back. How the heck are you?
Hey, yeah. Thanks, Wes. Doing fine. You know, it's sort of just did the book launch here, and yeah, you know what it's like. You know, you put all that work into it, and then you go, all right, will anybody think my baby's pretty? Authors are sometimes the most self-conscious. So, but it's the book's doing well. It's getting good reviews. It's sold well, and so far so good. Yeah, pretty excited. Yeah.
Man, do we even have to follow up? Come on, it's all retargeting and pixels, and you know, just buy my stuff, right? And here's $12,497 in bonuses if you order right now. Operators are standing by.
You know, it's funny when I look at follow up, and I might get you. We haven't talked about this, Wes, but my guess is that, like me, every single day you're getting just bombarded with emails that are just horribly written, and our finger just hovers over the delete key. We can't delete fast enough, and so when I think about the lack of creativity that goes into follow up, it's something where I looked at it and go, we got to do something about this, because there's follow-up efforts, when they happen at all, don't happen well. It's just a real quality gap that I wanted to address in the book.
Yeah, it really is. And I tell people all the time, I learned on accident on LinkedIn, I put a little red phone icon on my name. And some sales trainer in the UK was doing that. I saw like years ago. I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool, just to stand out. But what I've learned, the benefit is all these people that are screen scraping or using automated tools, it grabs your name, and in LinkedIn, it says, hi, Wes, red phone, or they'll email me, and it puts all these crazy characters in the email. So I know it's totally a screen scrape. It's just a blast. Right. And I'm like, delete. I'll delete before I even read it. You know, sometimes I have a moment like, yeah, it's really bad. Delete. So, or was it Seth Godin that wrote the book, like All Marketers Are Liars, or marketers ruin everything? The sales and marketing, do we just ruin everything, man? Is there any hope for us?
Yeah, you know, look, here's the good news, is that if you can separate from the pack, you look so different from everybody else immediately that it doesn't take that much time, effort, or creativity. You just got to want to do it. And I think the concern here is whether it comes to the prospecting side, at the follow-up side, what do you do after the customer says, I want to think about it, or not yet? It doesn't take that much. But unfortunately, I think we rely on our CRM to be able to punch out a bunch of form emails that look like form emails. I just think most customers today are wise to the fact that they look, we're human beings, right? So we can spot inauthenticity from a long way away. We know when that's a form email. We know when it's a phone call and somebody's reading off of a script. It's just not that hard. If we can get just a little bit creative, I think we can stand out in a huge way.
So give me an example, man. Do I have to tell a joke? Do I equate this to Elon Musk and launching a car to Mars? I mean, like, how creative do I have to be? Because you know what? Look, I'm hungover, right? I mean, it's Monday, and I'm a salesman. I party all weekend, and then there's ladies' night on Thursday. So Fridays I'm hungover. So I mean, I got like 3 days a week maybe to really get some work done.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Well, I would look at it and say, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to hire a marching band. I think what you need to do here is understand a fundamental principle that customers buy based on emotion more than anything else. So our job in follow-up, right after the customer says, not yet, I want to think about it, whatever it is, our job is to try to figure out how to extend what I've always referred to as emotional altitude. So if I'm in a conversation, a sales conversation, I'm thinking about it, that's interesting. Now I want to think about it for a while. Well, immediately that emotional altitude is going to start to wane, going to start to go away. The purpose of follow-up is to try to recharge that emotional altitude. You're not going to do it by saying, just following up, just seeing if you'd made a decision, just seeing if I can get paid on this deal. That emotional altitude is about reconnecting the customer to how great their life is going to look like. But that's the idea of behind follow-up, is how to support that emotional altitude over a long period of time.
So obviously the book is on follow-up, but in an ideal situation, I'd rather not follow up. I'd rather make that sale the first time around. Right. Can this type of preparation help me on the front end? Sure,
it absolutely can. It's interesting. I wrote the book and around the subject of follow-up because there's a big gap. There's like, if you do an Amazon search on sales follow-up books, you're not going to find a lot of results there. So I knew that there was a gap. It's something that, Wes, you and I, we hear this from salespeople all the time. How do I do this effectively? I hate follow-up, right? And consequently, it doesn't get done. But it would be very easy to apply the principles to everything that happens before you're going to sit down in a sales presentation and talk to the client. How do you get creative? How do you raise that emotional altitude? So, for example, my wife and I bought a quarantine dog, right? So we're like, we're going to get stuck here. We're going on walks a lot. Let's get a dog. The process was entirely virtual. The seller of the dog was 5.5 hours away. Everything was done by phone call and by video. She sent a ton of videos. This is Brody doing what he does. Look, somebody's coming in the yard. Let's see how Brody does over here. And everything was about sustaining that emotional altitude even before we had met Brody. And the amazing thing there was, by the time we met the dog, the only question was, would the dog love us? We already loved the dog. Would the dog love us? And we ended up, and again, that's a dog. Is there anything more emotional purchase than a dog? But the emotional altitude was very, very high because that seller had used the power of video to get that done.
I've got 7 kids. I'd have given you one or all of them. I mean, come on, man. You got to call me next time we're in quarantine, all right?
Yeah. No, my kids are all grown. My kids are grown and gone. I have a different quarantine experience than you have. I can promise you that.
I only have one gone. You got to give me the secret, man. I got to get these kids out of the house. Good grief.
But it was fun. I was talking to somebody on my team about that. And I said, I'm like all week, go. And then I hit the weekend. It's like, now I'm bored. What do I do? And she looked at me. She's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Because she's got 2 little kids at home. It's like, my weekends are just as hectic as my week. So yeah, there you go. Different experience for everybody.
It's crazy. You talk in here, chapter 6, speed, your secret superpower. Yeah. So do I have to follow up right away? What are we getting into here?
Well, here's what happens. Remember that the principle is that we're trying to sustain emotional altitude, and time kills emotional altitude. So if you, like on your website, you talk about dating and the similarity between dating and sales, right? So what happens if you go out on a date with somebody and it's like, I'll call you, and then they don't call you. And the next day you're like, you're going to call me? You're going to call me? And every day that goes by, the emotional altitude wanes. You become disconnected from what you experienced in that initial date. Everything sort of goes away. It's the same thing here. The longer you go from that initial conversation, the more that emotional altitude is going to wane. So yes, I think speed is critical in order to boost that up. But how fast can you do it? Well, listen, you have a sales presentation. You can text somebody from the parking lot. You can look at it and say, that was a great conversation. Thank you very much. As I said, I'm going to give this to you. I'll have it to you by 5 o'clock today. Look forward to our phone call. Now, what have you done? You made an immediate impression. You let them know that you appreciated the call. You put your phone number into their phone. You were respectful, and you confirmed an appointment for 30 seconds worth of effort at no cost. Is there a downside here that I'm missing? So yeah, I want to look at it and say, how do I get back to that customer very, very quickly? And then how do I continually add value? But make no mistake, the longer you go without follow-up, the more the emotional altitude falls off a cliff.
Yeah. Amen. Does the schedule, the timing, the mode, does that have to be predetermined? So like when we wrap up the meeting, because I know a lot of salespeople, they wrap up the meeting, they leave. Boss is like, how'd it go? Good. What are the next steps? Well, I mean, they're going to think about it. They asked me to send some more information. Should I be like confirming everything right there in the meeting? Like, okay, it's Monday. You need until Wednesday. You want me to call or you want me to come back in person at 10 a.m.? I mean, should I be that specific to know how to follow up?
Yeah, listen, there are a couple of thoughts that come up. This is a really good question, Wes. There are a couple of thoughts that come up here. One is the idea that you should always own the next step. If you're the salesperson, this next step should always be yours. It shouldn't be they're going to think about it and they're going to get back to me and they're going to have the conversation. You got to own the next step. So I think we put too much pressure on a customer when we force them to own that next step. That's a classic mistake that's made. The second mistake that gets made is that we put the information into the CRM and then we let the CRM do the follow-up. It's just something completely generic. And I would argue that if we really got to know that customer well, then there's only one question we have to ask and that's how do I add value? How do I add value to this customer? How do I serve and serve and serve? How do I add value even on a daily basis if it makes sense to be able to stay connected and let them know? Because ultimately, if they're going to hire you as a salesperson, if they're going to hire your company, if they're going to hire your services, they want value once they hire you. The best way to prove that they're going to get value once they hire you is to give them value before they hire you. So I don't think this takes a lot of creativity to look at it and say, how do I add value? How do I promote something? How do I make sure that there's that customer understands that I get you, I know how to improve your life in some way. So it's really a matter of, too often we abdicate to the CRM and let the CRM do the follow-up. I completely disagree with this. I think if we can creatively figure out how to make their life better before we get the sale, then we're proving to them that we're the people that they want to work with.
Now, because we're talking follow-up, I'm going to go with the assumption that this is a complex sale, right? It's something, maybe there's two or more decision makers. Maybe it's a little higher dollar, right? I mean, we're not following up on, a new toaster oven, right? I mean, we're following up, and even if it's B2C, maybe you're following up on a solar setup. I'm a $20,000, $30,000 purchase.
Right. Right.
Maybe it's even furniture, right? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, living room set. All right. Maybe I do have to think that over. So how do we know who to follow up with? We got the husband and the wife, we got the CEO, the CFO, and the director of IT. Do we follow up with all three of them, or how do we juggle that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the most important thing is we have to identify the most sold buyer. If there are multiple decision makers, who is the most sold buyer? Because if you look at, say, you could have this person in the purchasing department and that person in the IT. Purchasing may be into it, but IT not so much. So who's going to have more power over the IT person? Me or the purchasing guy or gal? So I want to look and say, same thing, husband and wife. She's all in, him not so much. So I got to figure out who's the most sold buyer and figure out how to turn them into a salesperson. How do I help them to be able to be the influencer that I'm going to need them to be? So I think it starts by looking at that, trying to figure out who the most sold buyer is. But then it's to look at it and say, okay, well, for everybody else, for all of the different stakeholders in this decision, how do I add value to each of those people? So, look, I'll give you an example, because here's a B2C example. Husband, wife, 2 kids. Is there follow-up that I could do for the kids? If I've got an 11-year-old girl who's going to be living in this home, can I send a K-pop poster? Is there something that I can do there even to connect with the kids, for crying out loud? There's just a little bit of creativity can go a long way to say, I'm not like everybody else who's just letting the CRM send out a form letter.
Yeah. Interesting. So I love that concept of the most sold. What if they're not the most influential, right? What if it's, I was in technology sales for a long time, and,
Yep.
CFO and CIO were my main contacts. But then, the CIO would have like one person in charge of the server room, right? But another was in charge of everything that was client side, so desktops. So CIO makes all the decisions, but maybe, right, the desktop laptop person was like totally on board wanting this. How do you balance that? So most sold versus most influential, or is that most sold person, can they become the most influential?
Well, you hope so, but I also think that it's on you as the sales professional to try and figure out who are the stakeholders and what do they want. So I'll just give you a simple example. Yeah, I'm a salesperson. One of the things that I sell is a keynote speech. Well, if I'm going to give a keynote speech, I'm going to have the vice president of marketing who's reaching out looking for speakers, but it might be the CFO who's got to approve the fee. Right. And so the CFO is looking at it and saying, well, a good keynote speaker shouldn't cost more than $1,000. Well, guess what? It does. So now I've got to be able to look at it and say to that head of marketing, this is what I'm going to do for your team by way of inspiration and motivation. I'm going to get them pumped up. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be entertaining. I'm going to make your meeting better. But I've also got to go to the CFO and say, let's talk about your ROI. Because if you're going to spend $1 million for this conference, my speaking fee is a rounding error. The question is, what do you get for it? What do we have what will you show by the time we're done? This is what I want to promise you by the time we're done, so that the CFO knows it's a good financial decision. So you got to consider the stakeholder and ask, what do they have in mind? What do they want to see? For that chief, information officer, it might be something as simple as, if you make me look bad, this is not good. So it might be something about how I'm going to make you look good. The more that we can figure out who the stakeholders are, the more that we can custom tailor a follow-up specifically to them.
Yeah. Amen. So we're in COVID. We're going to be in COVID for a while. Then we have elections. So. Then we have more shutdowns. We have protests and riots. And we're not getting on planes, at least not as often. And very few people want to meet in person. So is all of this just as effective virtually or remotely?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I was able to, normally you write a book quite a ways before the time that it actually hits the shelves. And fortunately, I was able to get the quarantine and the shutdown happened while I was still on the tail end of the writing process. So I was able to go in and adjust that accordingly. Now, having said that, the book was already going to be video heavy. I am a huge fan of video. I do not understand why more salespeople aren't using video as a part of their presentation, and especially as a part of their follow-up. It is so powerful. It is so impactful. Right? They say that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1,000 pictures. When we think about just the way that people process information, our brains, when we think about all 5 of our senses, 50% of our brain is dedicated to the visual sense compared to all of the others. We are visual people. And so when we watch that video, it makes just all the difference in the world. So we're trying to figure out, how do I find video online? How do I create video? How do I send video? How do I use video? And I think that what we're finding now is the good news is that buyers, regardless of who they are, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. Buyers are suddenly incredibly savvy on video. So when you look at the numbers on Zoom, for example, there were 10 million Zoom subscribers, 10 million Zoom accounts in February. You know how many Zoom accounts there are at the time of this recording? 300 million.
Whoa.
The entire world has figured out Zoom. So now not only do we have video as a way to be able to communicate with people, but people are far more savvy on how to receive there. It's not a big deal anymore. Video should not be cutting edge, but until it gets used more, it is going to be. That's the idea.
What if I have a face made for radio, man? I don't know.
The good news about follow up and close the sale is that the premise of the book is you're getting in touch with somebody after you've already met them, after they've already seen you. And so, look, I want to be able to use video as part of my prospecting. I want to use it. If I can't meet face-to-face, I want to do that over a Zoom call or whatever it is. And then I want to continue. By that point, they already know what you look like. And I hear that, I don't like the way I look on camera. Hate to break it to you, dude. That's what you look like. And it's, you're not going to fool the public anymore. That's what you look like. Do you have a LinkedIn profile? They already know what you look like. So yeah, I just think, but the point that you make, Wes, is that people are so hung up on it about how I look and what people will think that they don't do it. Just get over yourself. This isn't about you. This is about your customer.
Yeah, they really won't notice. And even if you're 5 weeks in and you got quarantine head, you just grab one of your swag hats. I got my Keep hat on today. So
yeah.
Put it on and get to work.
There you go. And if you're like me, you just embrace it and you go, okay, I remember hair, but that was a different day. Let's move on.
So I'm glad you brought up video. I mean, what do you think of video email? I've had BombBomb on the show. Yeah. I use them. I use Bonjoro to demonstrate that. I've gotten great results from video email. So have you used it much? Recommend it?
Totally love it. Me and my team, we all use BombBomb. But here's the key. If you're attaching something in an email, the email itself has to look personalized. The customer needs to know that this is not generic. So, for example, I had somebody send me an email recently, and there's a screenshot, right, that goes in a BombBomb email. And so the customer wrote, "Hi, Jeff," on a little piece of paper and held it up in front of the camera to know this is for you. This isn't just a generic video that I'm sending. I did this for you. So somehow you have to be able to separate and let the customer know, I'm not e-blasting out a video. This is a video that I recorded just for you. You got to get people's attention. So when I talk about the follow-up superpowers, we talked about one, speed. The other is personalization. So if the follow-up is generic, your customer can smell it a mile away. When it's personalized, they know it. You combine those two things together, speed and personalization, you are way out in front of the pack right from the very beginning.
Yeah, I hear it all the time, and I've been in this space a long time. And so I know all the indicators, but people, they sneak them in sometimes. I had somebody, she left a voicemail. And it was just high, right? Not high West, but she kind of rolled into it and almost didn't catch it. I'm like, oh, this is a broadcast,
right?
I mean, it's like, take the time to put their name in, like a BombBomb email or Bonjoro. I got mobile apps; they're on my phone. I mean, open the app, the email comes in, I click on their name, click the button. I mean, it's 30 seconds, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And I
it's
do
not
it
difficult.
I do it so simple. Hey, Jeff, thanks for visiting my site. Appreciate you downloading my report. Let me know how I can help. Send.
Yeah.
I mean,
you
it's personalized because it comes relatively quickly after you do something. And I say your name. And if I can, I'll reference, you opted in for the podcast, or you got my 7 Deadly Sins of Selling. So I'll mention it, and they're like, oh, hell, he really did send that. Now I'll have people reply, is this really you? How can I fake that?
Right. It's a really good point. I mean, if it's on video, it's you.
Right.
And where if it's just got kicked out of your CRM, it could have been from everybody. But I think this brings up a really important point, Wes, and that is that, for a lot of salespeople, they think whether it's the prospecting side or the follow-up side, it's just about the numbers. Crank out calls, more, look, I get it. There is a numbers game aspect to it, but just a little bit of research, a little bit of creativity, a little bit of how do I make this fun will completely change both your prospecting and your follow-up efforts. But if it's just a matter of inundating them with, here's another email, here's another email, here's another email, it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't take that long to make this personalized. It just takes a little bit of creativity. But I would argue that if you as a salesperson are not having fun in your follow-up efforts, your customer's having less fun. This should be the enjoyable part of the process.
What?
It should. It should be fun. It should be something where you're like, okay, come on, time to unleash the creative brain. What do I got here? Take some chances. Why not? What's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, you're going to get forgotten anyway. Take some chances. Do something a little different. Let me give you. Here's a great example. There's a salesperson that works for a client of ours, and she sells homes. So she shows a home to this lady. Lady's got 2 kids, right? 8 and 10. Comes up that the kids play soccer. So that next Saturday, she's driving by the soccer field, and it's Saturday morning soccer. It's all going on. She's in her car. All she does is roll down her car window, picks up her phone, and videotapes a little bit of a soccer tournament going on. She says, hey, we're at the field. This is right down. You could walk there from the home right here. This is what's going to happen. These are your kids. This is what this park looks like when it's alive. Can't wait to get you in here. 30 seconds, 0 cost, high impact. That's what we're talking about. It's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of creativity.
Yeah. How persistent are you along the stages, right? Obviously, if you've met, you've got a proposal in front of them, they want 2 or 3 days to think it over, it's a high dollar deal, you're going to be pretty persistent. But what if it's just, I reach out to that CIO to have that initial meeting, and they're like, yeah, maybe, I'm going on vacation, give me a call in a couple of weeks when I get back. So are you just as dogged to set that appointment as you are to get the final answer?
Yeah. So yes, you are, but here's the key. The first question is not how do I set an appointment? The first question is how do I add value? So I don't want my customer to feel like they're doing me a favor by setting up a follow-up appointment. What I want to be able to do with that CIO is be able to say, okay, you're going on vacation. Let me just tell you what I'm going to do while you're on vacation. This is what I'm going to do for you while you're on vacation. I'm going to look at this, I'm going to research this, I'm going to put that together. So let's set a meeting here for when you get back, and we'll give you a couple of days because I know what it's like after vacation. So let's look at the Wednesday after you get back. That way I'll have done all of this work for you, and I can show you what we did. And then you can decide whether that's a good decision. So what am I doing there? I'm just trying to figure out, how do I add value? How do I add value? So I wouldn't look at this first and foremost with the question of how often should I call back or how aggressive I should be. The question is, how do I add value? And if I can add value, everything changes. That's the idea.
How much work is that going to take, though? I mean, because obviously I can't be doing a whole bunch of work on a potential.
Well, listen, you got to weigh it out, right? There's certainly an ROI consideration here for your time versus what the payoffs is going to be. It's a huge, multi-million-dollar account. I get it. It's going to take a little bit more time. Let's go ahead and roll the dice. Let's invest some time and energy into it. But on the other hand, I might look at it and say, okay, I'm selling boats. And so I could have at the ready, several articles that I've pulled off of the web that will help different people at different times that I could insert into my follow-up pattern and say, I was just thinking about you and you said this. I found an article about that. Here you go. So it doesn't mean you have to have a separate research project for every single customer you're going to have to meet. But what you do want to do is make sure that your follow-up is customized to that person, that it doesn't just look like a generic, I send this out to everybody.
Yeah, very cool. I like that because the reality is, and I use the CIO example a lot because that's who I was calling on, like CIOs at hospitals. And the reality was I knew my niche and I had a ton of good testimonials, case studies, and It didn't take a whole lot of homework. Because I knew my industry. Every CIO had the exact same, 4, 5, 6 problems. Yeah. And so kind of having some things bookmarked, we can market, I call it a swipe file, right? So I could kind of drip it out on them and make it seem like I'm doing all this work. In reality, I've got it all saved.
Sure, totally.
Everybody has the same problems. So
absolutely.
Saving
and listen, if you don't have answers to the problems, you should not be in that position in the first place.
Yeah.
If you can't anticipate what your customers' issues are in advance and what the commonalities are, you're just not doing your job. but you can. You create sales. That's why they're there. That's why they're in that position. If you can't add value, you're not a salesperson, period.
Yeah. Amen. So we can add value to our listeners' lives by getting your book. Is that right?
Of course you can. Now,
so how do they do that? How do they get your book?
Yeah. You can go to jeffshore.com, which is the right place to start, because we have I've got an 8-part video series that's included if you buy the book, and we'll do all we can to try and make you effective and successful. But just go to jeffshore.com. You can pick up the book there, and we've got a number of conversations on the Buyer's Mind podcast as well about follow up. So it's just one of those things where it just begins by making a decision that I want to stand out from everybody else. If you don't want to stand out from everybody else, please don't buy the book. This is a book about making it easy and approachable to do something that other salespeople find disturbing or unattractive. How do we make it easy? If we can make it easy and fun, the battle is already won.
Yeah. Amen. Easy and fun. That's what I like, man. That's why you're back on the Sales Podcast after 5.5 years. So you know what? It needs to be less than 5.5 years for
Let's do it, Wes.
All right?
Yeah, let's do it. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, if you get down to Murrieta to see your peeps, let me know. We'll go wine tasting.
Will do. Let's do it, Wes. Thanks, buddy.
All right, Jeff. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Have a great day.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I'm just following up to see if I'm going to get paid on this deal. I love it. Time kills deals. The emotional altitude is lost over time. You must own the next step as the salesperson. Okay? Don't leave it up to the CRM for all this generic follow-up. So many good things in there. Things that I talked about. Follow-up should be fun. Man, I see people all the time. I'm in the 30-day sales growth group. I've got folks, I'm reviewing their content. They're saying, well, the email isn't working, blah, blah. And I look at their content, and it's just so boring. I'm like, spice this thing up. He's sending Bruno Mars and Dwayne The Rock Johnson GIFs and emails and, having much more success and having fun. All right. Your prospects are humans. Have a little fun. And of course, it's got to be professional. I did have to make him tone it down a little bit. But, I'd rather have you dial it back a little than ratchet it up, 100x. Have some fun with this stuff, okay? Take some chances. And even if you are a little risque or push it a little bit, all right, you're going to offend a couple, fine. There's an old saying, if you don't piss somebody off by noon, you're not marketing. So get after it. Get busy, okay? Push the envelope a little bit. It'll be fine. So, like I said, need some help pushing this. If you want some on-demand content, stuff you can watch and own, and it's the content, it's the concepts, the strategies, and tactics I've been using for 23 years. It's the stuff I've been teaching since 2006 when I launched the Sales Whisperer. Okay, it has worked then. It's still working today. All right, this is not some outdated stuff that I learned, in the 90s, taught by some dude that was selling in the 70s. This is real world stuff. So makeeverysale.com. For $75, get a nice price. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll go sell something.